Okay, I believe recording is in process. Again, opposite. What are we? We're not Oregon Public Defense Commission.
Yes.
Office hours, caseload and data reporting for PCRP. We are recording this meeting, so others who cannot be here can access the discussion. Because we are recording the meeting, the digitized recording will constitute a public record and would be disclosable in response to a public records request pursuant to ORS Chapter 192. We'll go around the room and do quick introductions. My name is Shelley Dillon, a data and research analyst with the Office of with OPDC.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Alina Haynes. I'm one of the program analysts here as in support of PCRP. I support PCRP in Multnomah County's jurisdiction.
I'm Megan Doak. I'm also a program analyst, and I am the new analyst for Douglas and Coos, which are both PCRP.
I'm BJ McCartney. I'm the program analyst now for Columbia and Clatsop counties.
Adelina Hernandez, and I am the program analyst for the majority of the PCRP county.
And I'm Harry Noon. I'm a data analyst here at OPDC.
Okay. It looks like we have two guests on the line, or at least one now. Thanks for joining us. Hello, Gardner. Nice to see you again. So we do have an update from our last meeting. The agenda for these meetings were the month is consistent from the Monday meeting to the Wednesday meeting. But concerning the public dashboard that we reviewed on Monday, I believe a communication will go out, but we are delaying going live with the public facing dashboard until further notice. So I think we need to drop that from our agenda item for today, which then leaves us to just the overview of the caseload reporting. If you don't get a successful submission, how to troubleshoot that. And again, this is supposed to be an open dialogue. We do have a structure of agenda items, but if you have a specific question or anything that you would like to ask, this is a transparent, open forum, at your service kind of a approach. And I don't know, Gardner, if you had any other specific questions about your caseload reporting or how to upload. It sounds like you do a really good job with that often.
Hi. No, I was joining again today only because I certainly had my fair share of a very small meeting on Monday to speak and be heard and to get your feedback on things. So I appreciate it. And today I was only really just trying to kind of see the evolution of these meetings and to see who, if other people had other issues and things like that. So I was kind of wondering if this meeting would, would be larger or have a different tone to it. And I think it's just something, it's a work in progress is kind of my sense, I'm sure. So, but I didn't have additional information or issues. And it feels like it'd be funny if I were like, let me just ask you my 10 questions, and you're all at my disposal today. I don't think that's what you intended the meeting to be. And I don't think I have anything really pressing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, the agenda is the same. Last week, when we opened it up for criminal and juvenile contractors, I think the feedback from the program analyst was there were also PCRP providers who were also at that. It was a Wednesday at noon format just like this. So yes, this is a work in progress, and we're wondering if we have overscheduled ourselves, but we certainly wanted to be sensitive to the fact that attorneys are in court during the day hours, sometimes even over the noon hour, but hopefully they could get a break over the noon hours so that they could hop on and learn. And if they have a question, they can ask us a question, or if they're struggling with something. So yes, it is an evolution, and this is our first attempt, and PCRP we'll have to evaluate our time on this, but we certainly wanted to give it a try and see what's the best format for all folks involved.
Can I ask a quick question about the meeting that was, to characterize this question, internally at MDI, an email went out from our director who just let us know of these, of being alerted to, if you will, these meetings. And then when and then the questions went back and forth, like, do we all go to the same meetings or what's this? And we kind of seem to have sorted that out internally, and it was explained. And then we're like, okay, looks like there's meetings for some people, for some, others focused on and others. But since it's new, maybe people are just not getting it right just yet. My question is this: because of the attendance at the early meeting, the one that was for criminal and juvenile non-PCRP, were there a lot of PCRP related give and take questions and answers that occurred in that, or was it kind of like a little smaller subset that just kind of reared its head for a little bit because some of those folks were present at the wrong meeting, if you follow me? Was it significant? Should I seek out information about that meeting?
The information, you can certainly access the recording online. That recording is posted. Again, it has the same agenda and the same items were discussed, mostly the public facing dashboard. And then some tips and tricks if you're having trouble uploading your CSV files. So
I don't recall anything specific to PCRP in the first meeting, which did not become discussed in the second meeting, if that answers your question. So we're trying to tailor as much of the PCRP discussions in these meetings specifically designated for PCRP contracts.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I guess the question I have is, do you, I think it was expressed in the original email that folks for these meetings, and the only reason I'm doing this again is there's such a small group that I'm just taking advantage of it. If they're a larger group, I would probably take only 90% advantage of it. It seemed like the idea was that if there are people that are involved in caseload stuff and reporting, in other words, not just attorneys, but administrators, as well as if you have, staff in our office that might be legal assistants that do part of that, or they have certain roles that kind of connect to it. Case managers even, and just kind of how they keep track of things and stuff, even if it's not exactly the same thing, that these might be a valuable kind of forum for everybody to just kind of be part of, to talk to the actual analysts and the people that are present, you all, that might be able to answer very specific questions that they might have about how to do things. And you can answer a question once to a larger group rather than having to answer 50 emails over the course of 3 frantic days, is kind of the way I pictured it. Is that kind of what you were hoping, more people be involved in these and kind of be more time effective?
I think so. It's certainly something we're offering. We'll see if folks pick it up and take advantage of it.
I think we face some of the same stuff internally. It's easier to go over problems on a, one-on-one conversational basis than it is through 10 emails. So we're hoping to cut through the same sort of dynamic with these meetings as well.
Okay, Beth put something in the chat. I attended the seminar in November. I would like to confirm a case client cannot be listed on the submitted spreadsheet more than one time, or the spreadsheet will be rejected, even if the same client case is listed for 2 separate reasons. And Beth, I don't know if you can hop on and talk with us, but if you're listing a case, why would you list a case more than once on your sheet? Is it?
I think she's talking about duplicate entries as far as validation, and is there a legitimate reason for that on the report? That's my understanding.
PCRP though.
She's talking criminal.
Is she talking criminal? Beth, can you can you speak for yourself? Let us know. Is this a PCRP reporting question or a criminal contract reporting question?
I think she's responding in the chat.
Yeah, it looks
Oh.
like it's just got typo.
Okay.
Here it is.
Going to special court and the attorney is appointed. Oh, my mic. Okay.
It's like non, the juvenile non-PCRP.
Is it criminal or PCRP contract? She's typing.
Does her mic not work because we muted her or?
Possibly. Yeah, can we unmute you to see if
Okay,
there's
it's-
still,
So she's talking about a criminal. Can you, Harry muted you. We're gonna try to unmute so we can at least talk about it instead of type about it.
I don't see where I'm able to unmute her now. She's,
Oh, she said
she's
certain-
disabled her microphone.
Okay.
This is something we're dealing with Christine and Kevin, because it has to do with specialty court and how they count. And so so I think what happens I know this might happen in other places where they're in specialty court and there's a PV filed that leads them to be kicked out of specialty court, right? That sometimes they're not, sometimes they are. The attorney of record or the specialty court attorney has that on their opening or their caseload,
Right.
and they count it. But so there's never a withdrawal filed there. But then, how do I say this? The PV, because he's revoked, goes to I believe it goes to a different attorney to handle. So then she's saying, can it be counted? It can't be counted here because can't be counted here because it already was counted under specialty court.
Oh,
Is the report gonna be rejected?
it should not be, duplicates are rejected if it is truly a duplicate record. Like you just cut and paste,
The same exact case number.
right, attorney, case number, case type, disposition code. If they've been kicked out of specialty court, that record should be reported as terminated from specialty court, whatever that disposition code is. And then the record can then be reported by the new attorney with a PV as the case type code. That should not be rejected in the validation criteria.
If it doesn't get an appointment order for the new attorney on the PV, what date would she put for the appointment date
The date that PV was.
filed?
Mhm.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Beth?
The attorney lists them as a PV, but they are also listed on the specialty court with the same attorney. What county are you from, Beth?
Reschedule something with her.
Yes, because I would like to be able to look at the
Yeah.
case number and look at how the court is entering that information. Because if they're,
I guess if you're trying to get the same exact case number through on multiple rows, that may be, unless it's, a co-counsel thing or something along those lines, then that may be generating some validation issues.
right, but if it was a C felony and they're in a specialty court and now it's back as a PV, that's a different case type. So that
And a
would not be
different case.
duplicate.
Is it the same case number?
It's,
It
Yeah.
is, but that
That does
alone
not-
does not make it a duplicate.
exactly. Oh, you're in Yamhill, okay. Beth, perhaps, Adelina's are you the analyst for Yamhill?
Yeah.
Maybe we could set up a call and we could look at a couple of case numbers. We could look them up in Odyssey and see how the court is displaying the information. And if you have an example of a report that was rejected because of this, or are you just asking questions to prevent rejections? Okay, that's fine. Trying to prevent, okay. So it's a case where they're in specialty court, so Attorney Smith is appointed to this case as a C felony, then it goes into specialty court. And then it comes back as a PV. Is it coming back in the same month as you reported it as a specialty court case? Appointed, no new appointment.
Is the PV because they're not complying with the specialty court, so they're filing the PV and then if they determine then whether or not they're going to continue with specialty court or terminate specialty court?
Yes, same, yes. I think we need to like look up a case number and walk through it with you.
There
But
might be some questions too around whether that is a new,
appointment, yeah,
because that seems like a weird way to address somebody not complying with their specialty court. I think there might be more to
Exactly.
that to think
Yeah.
about than just how to report it. It's
Exactly.
whether you should even report it.
yeah. Beth, would you be open to scheduling some time with us and Adelina to look through it and see? Especially where they are told being terminated. Okay, I think in this case, it might be worth scheduling some time, and then if you could have some case number examples that we could look up with you, and then we could walk through how to report that, so your reports do not get rejected. And she's typing with 3 photos.
Hi, this is Gardner. The worst thing is just to jam other people's opinions in on things like this because it's not the role. But I will say this sounds similar in some ways, perhaps more to how to make sure you're getting the proper case count and you're reporting it properly for things that don't fit normally. And there are some examples of that in the PCRP stuff in the manual. I keep thinking of guardianships as being an analogy to this, which is you're appointed to a dependency case, you represent a client, the case plan shifts to a guardianship, but in Multnomah County, or at least, they just continue that under the dependency case. It's not a new case. It just shows as a continuing of one more action in the same case. But then I think the advice is to make sure you're getting the proper credit and it's called the right thing. We don't add the case number and duplicate it. We keep the same case number, but you may change the title of the type of case in that column. And then you change sometimes, I'm not saying that's necessary, what your credit is for that. Is it a 0.5 extra? Is it 1.5 because of that new designation? Which depends on, I'm not saying that's what happens with these cases, but I think that's usually how these things are corrected. It's not that you add the case over, it's that it's called something else when it enters a different stage, like probation violation, or how much credit you get for a probation violation. And this comes up, I know, with other people in the criminal sections with the idea of cases that are resolved supposedly, and you have one appointment, but then it just keeps coming up with extra things that aren't actual appointments, and they're not sure how to report it.
Right, and that's probably post-disposition work is not, yeah.
It's not
post-disposition,
appointed work,
not-
right?
Exactly. Okay. Okay. Okay, Beth. So I think we can walk you through it. If you're reporting it as an open case as a specialty court in the month of January, and then they're being appointed to a PV in the same month. Yeah, you should be able to report that record twice in the same month with different codes, because there is a specialty court case type code. And then if they're being charged with a PV, you should be able to upload that report, same case number, same attorney, but different case type codes should not bounce the report out as invalid. That's what I'm thinking, but I reserve the right to be wrong, and we'd love to look at the case with you.
Well, I would also second that based on how I understand the validation process.
So Beth, do you report for PCRP and criminal? Okay. Okay. So we just have some reminders of, if you get when you're uploading your CSV files, the system will not even process if you have a special character in your file name. The only special character that's acceptable is the underscore. So if you have like hashtag or spaces or exclamation points, the system will not accept the upload. And so you won't even receive an email saying it's been valid or a successful or not successful submission. And that's just, that's back end technical stuff that we have no control over. So just make sure that your file names are, have no special characters in them. I don't know if you've had problems with that in the past, Beth, but that's kind of, something that we've seen recently. So we just want to do a little reminder about that. And I don't know if, Harry has anything to add from the caseload reporting tips and tricks, or
My advice would be to follow the specific errors in the email that you get. And in general, if you do not receive a email confirmation saying your report has been successfully submitted, if you do not receive that message, that alone means it was not successfully submitted. I think that's the quickest way to cut through these confusing situations, such as, where did my message go? Did it get sent? If you did not receive it, that is enough of an indication as far as the result of your submission. And I don't know how much I should or should not say on the public facing dashboard, but that is a tool which we were hoping would aid that process.
I had a separate question, if that's all right. And it kind of has to do with the, it has to do with Excel. I'll just say that right out of the gates. And some of us are learning as we go, right? Over the last, several years, you just learn what you learn. And some of us had experience with things and others were completely newbies at it. So here's just a very simple question. If I have and tell me if this is beyond the scope of what we're trying to accomplish here with reporting, but it ties into it. One thing that happens internally in our office, it's just, I'm gonna let this out there. It's not something that I think is improper, but it's just something that's an embarrassment, which is we have spreadsheets for each different attorney that are filled in by each separate attorney in Excel form. And each form seems to have recurring problems with it, if you follow me, like they're persistent. And what I'm trying to figure out a way is to clean a form up and without just losing all the data that's already in it. In other words, you have all these open cases and you don't want to just have to refill a whole form again. You want to be able to do it right. But I'll give you an example. In one person's form, it always shows that columns or rows of let's say activities 245 to 300 are missing data. And the fix that we use when you're rushing to submit things, if you can picture this, is empty all the cell contents for that entire range of rows. And then you clear those, then you do it, get it going, get it in the proper format, and then we send it in. That's like, it fixed the problem. But then the next month it's still there. And I think it's because internally we're not changing the form. Do you have suggestions or is there advice on how to get better at Excel or how to manage these things or who we should ask if we don't have that information internally?
That is an excellent question. and I will share my screen and we will go to our website if it's, if it's working.
I see it.
Okay, let's see. Caseload reporting page, PCRPs, we do have a template to use. So if you're using the same form over and over again that has errors in it, you might want to start from scratch with a fresh template to add your information to. There's a PCRP reporting template. Let's see here.
So this template starts with absolute, absolutely no information entered in any row, right? Completely blank. And one workaround, based on the problem you just described, is to copy and paste only the intended rows that you know exist on your spreadsheet, and to copy them into this, the original template. And that will almost every time correct the issue that you're facing, because there's some mystery character entered way outside the scope of your intended rows and columns, right?
Right.
It could be a hidden spacebar entry or something as simple as that. So Nintex wants to evaluate all the rows until your mystery space, which is not productive, but that's what it does.
Right. So there's a quick guide here. I would encourage maybe go to the template, download this, and then, as Terry said, cut and paste if you can from another, or if you're typing in.
And one of the issues has been, I think people are using old templates that have been around for attention.
Too long?
Let's say
They're
too
old,
long.
yeah.
They're old, they're outdated, and the most current and effective one will be found on the page, which Shelley just referenced for you.
I have
Right,
two
and
follow-up
if you-
questions. If I could.
Go ahead.
One is, I think we were alerted to a change in the template the last time it was changed a few months ago, and that's when we updated everything to the new template. Do you alert us to when there are new template changes? Is one thing I'm asking, because I would assume that was happening, because what it occurs internally is we create a form with the information on it. Sometimes there are only very few changes that have occurred between month to month on the open cases report tab. And so, or I guess it's called the PCRP reporting template tab on the form that you're showing me there. And so it is something that's duplicated, replicated. It's literally like they just use the same one. They change things as they go, and each month they're just making changes to the open cases report, if you will. And so here's my two follow-up questions. One, will you let us know if there's a new template, so we need to make sure we use the most recent? And then the second question is, how do people make those mistakes and errors that trigger that kind of problem, even if we refresh it? Because we did use the new template, we did create brand new things, and within a month, I was unpleasantly surprised at the ingenuity of everyone in our office to create, a variety of different errors on their forms, where it's like, and I want to be able to guide those individuals. That's my point. How do I tell them not to make the error start in the first place, that you're going to start having 40 rows that all think data should be in them, but really you think they should be empty rows? Like, how do they trigger that problem in the first place? And how can I tell them, don't do that?
Well, first of all, if there's a change to the template, that would be communicated in a variety of ways. There have not been changes to the template, in the last, since I can remember, when we went live with the PCRP and Nintex reporting format. If you're using the same copy over and over again, that's going to open the door for potential errors. I mean, it could just be as far as somebody has their cursor here and then they make a space, but then they get out of it. That's going to trigger, like, there's some information missing. Say you only had data on rows 2 through 10, but you have an extra space here on row 29. That's going to trigger the error. So I would say, before they upload, make sure that they clear data from anything below that, or download a copy of the template from the website each time and cut and paste into it. I think it's just managing your template and just being careful with that. I don't know if Harry has anything else to add to that.
Yeah, starting from the template on the website will always be the best practice. There's gonna be, accidents or what have you along the way. But I would, if you know that your spreadsheet before is repeating that error, I would suggest not using that, because every time you use that, it will have the same error hidden somewhere. So starting with the current template is always the best practice, and using that going forward.
As we're discussing this, Gardner, I'm wondering if for MDI's reports, if I'm assuming that all of the attorneys, whether PCRP or criminal, are working around the same rows every month. It's not like there's too much variance. I'm wondering if there's a way that we could block any entry, like freeze rows, or I don't know if there's a way in Excel. I'm not an Excel guru. I'm just trying to think through this, that would just only allow what would be generally the number of rows that any said attorney with your group would be reporting or having that caseload for. And then anything additional to that, block it on the template after you've pulled off of the current template. And then maybe that would prevent someone coming in and, I mean, cause yeah, you're a big group, your group's big. So the chances of errors, I'm just trying to think what could be done so that every month you're not having to pull the current, if we are updating you, if there is any adjustment to the current template. Cause that also seems like a lot to have. That's a lot of time for every attorney to be doing. I know that's best practice, but I'm just trying to think about if there are any other solutions that can work in-house for your group. Because I know you support PCRP and you submit the PCRP reports. And I'm off the top of my head, I'm not sure if, do all the criminal attorneys submit their own report, or do you have a designated person support, like submitting on behalf of the entity, all the attorney reports?
So, so in our office, and I appreciate the comments, I think from Beth, she had mentioned something that might be helpful, but I also, in our office, we basically are trying to avoid errors, especially on a 2-page document is the way we look at it, really 2 tabs. And it's like, you got your open cases, you got your activity, and you can copy paste back and forth between the two, like case numbers to jump into your activity report. And you can that's the fastest entry way we've found, at least, to do it. In other words, you look at the first page, you might copy the case number, jump that into an entry of activity on the second page. And then you'll eventually have a bunch of names that are there that you can copy and paste and insert in different places. So when you're entering all these different things, we try to have those. So that the open cases report has always been this kind of sacrosanct. We don't want a bunch of people dealing with that form. We want as few people managing that form. And frankly, the attorneys were not the ones we selected internally to be keeping your open cases report accurate as far as new cases being open and added, old cases being taken off. They still needed to look at it. They, if you're looking at it, you're trying to enter time, and you're like, wait, that case isn't there. Obviously, that then triggers you to take action, and get that case entered if, say, another person doesn't do it. So to answer your question more specifically, I submit all the reports in our office every month. I do that. And then, the forms that we have internally, sending those in to you all through the Nintex. We have different legal assistants for the different attorneys in teams, basically, usually like 2 attorneys for an assistant, who that legal assistant creates the forms that they make their entries on. So in other words, they create the June report that was just the month before was the May report. And the way they generally do it in our office is they save, it's literally a save as with a new month. And then they delete things from that and add things to that as they go on. And it generates those continuing errors. So that's how we do it. I'm just letting you know, the attorneys frankly never submit their stuff and, you know, and directly. It's usually through that system. Like they have the forms done, they let the legal assistants know when they're completed for the month at a date prior to the 20th that we've set in our office to be done by. Then once I get those, then I'm able to submit them all myself, and then I'll receive all the emails. I'll be the one who gets the errors or the successful submissions. And
So what I'm
the one thing
understanding-
and the only thing I was going to add to that is real quick. It was just that we were seeing errors when people were trying to cut and paste using the new template. I'm just letting you know that it's like internally, it's just different humans. The people that were copying and then pasting into the new form that they were downloading, they were doing that incorrectly somehow, and it was causing problems with the functions in the I don't know if it's functions, or I think they're called functions within the cells. Sometimes they would accidentally do it in certain ways where suddenly you're not having drop down menus, suddenly you're not having this, you're having this. So the fix for us was we make mistakes one way and we make mistakes the other way. So we picked the lesser of the two evils, and we're using a form that has all the proper drop down menus, everything works, and we're saving as. And then that's generating recurring errors that we've baked into our own forms, if you will. And so that's what it is. Sorry for the long-windedness.
Well, I think now you're talking about two different kinds of errors. We have these extraneous, excuse me, hidden entries, which we don't want, hidden space bars, things like that. Copying and pasting into the fresh template will get rid of that, I would assume, nearly every time. Okay, you have this working file, people have manipulated. When you submit, copying and pasting that into the current template will solve that now. Not having access to your files, I don't know exactly. I understand what you're referencing as far as cell manipulation and formulas and whatnot you may be using to generate, let's say, activity data based on the presence of the case number in your open case report. But I cannot really suggest something to you without seeing exactly what that looks like as
Fair
far
enough.
as a practice.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think I could communicate directly and maybe set a time to work on that with someone in the future. I have no problem with that. The one thing that I was trying to avoid was I was hoping for a quick fix on the one thing, which is I understand if you hit a space bar on row, say your last entry on activities is row 200. And so on row 201, you hit a space bar in the very first cell, and then you just like, I'm all done with my report. And we submit, it's like, hey, you got it, row 201 is missing all this data. What I don't understand is how you can have like 50 rows that all are saying that that's the case. Like, because I don't think a person's going into a row and hitting spacebar, then going to the next row, hitting spacebar, then hitting spacebar. Something.
If you have 200 rows and you're getting a error message down to row 251, let's say.
Right.
That means it's evaluating all the way down to row 251 based on the presence of some entry in row 251. That's why you're getting so many. The rows in between are probably empty, but it wants to evaluate all the way down to your secret little hidden character.
That's very helpful. So what you're saying is if I have 200 entries and then for some reason I just accidentally hit a space thing in row 251, the rows between 200 and 251, they'll all be looking for stuff there because they think the last final row that has information that should be evaluated is the last one with data in it. And it's just,
that's right. It's
defaulting to searching for all the previous rows that are empty.
That's right.
Correct.
Thank you. That's very helpful. And I think that's easy to avoid. That's information I can share that's pretty clear to my colleagues. So thank you very much.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Well, good. I'm glad we could provide some assistance to you in a meaningful way. Yeah.
Well, I think I'll just say one thing and leave it at that. It's a general comment for this entire setup, which is I just really appreciate the work you all do. But one of the built-in issues we have, of course, is there's so many of us that, and in different roles in our office even, and each office does things differently too, that it's just like we have our strengths and weaknesses. And it's interfacing with, I think, a new world that didn't necessarily exist. There are a lot of people that could go through their lives doing their practices and never submitting something through an Intex portal, or never using an Excel spreadsheet, or never knowing what a comma delineated, format is. And it's like years go by. And then when it's the interface between the new things and people that know about that, with all these people that have ways of doing things that are both stubborn or just ignorant on so many of these things that they're not our strengths. And they just kind of keep playing out while we try to just all do our work. So it sounds like these meetings are actually that's one of the main reasons for them. That could be helpful. I love stating the obvious, so everyone nods their heads and they're just like, yeah, thanks for that brilliant insight.
Part of our difficulty is, there's many different ways to produce that report, right? You could be using a variety of software programs or no software program at all. To me, Excel is just like a piece of paper with a calculator attached to it. It's not really that sophisticated. And so I imagine a software program such as Clio would, produce these canned reports probably more systematically and more error-free, let's say. But I'm just sort of, I don't know exactly if that's something you all have used or are considering using, but that may be something to explore.
But also had included another question here.
Okay, so question in the chat, is a case type going to be added for contempt cases found or and termination down the road? We have contempt case types already. I guess I don't fully understand the question. CONT is a case type for contempt. And again, Beth, I would suggest that you check out the reporting manuals that are available online. There's also a quick reference for case types and disposition codes. Spreadsheets keep getting rejected. Okay. Just typing. Oh, are you talking about the disposition code? I think, Beth, it's probably best if you, Adelina, and a member from our team do a separate Teams call, so maybe we can have a conversation back and forth. Yeah. We'll have to look at the disposition codes for specialty court events. Make sure you're getting what you need. So Adelina, will you schedule something for us? Okay.
Can I ask a
Great.
separate question that's very simple? Does OPTS or PCRP folks in particular, do you care how many people are submitting? In other words, is there a benefit to having one person being the email that's listed with every attorney's submission of their reports every month, right? Or having 3 people that are folks at the office that can all divide that work through them and submit them, or every single attorney, say, just doing them individually? Do you care how many people are submitting those? In other words, is there a benefit to just receiving them all from one email? We just don't know if it matters for your system in some way or tracking things.
There is no benefit. The system is set up to receive whatever email address is put into the form. You'll receive a valid or invalid submission. But I would just know, I thought that PCRP reports that the individual attorneys were supposed to upload them themselves.
They, I mean, I have a lot of consortiums. It depends on I guess the entity and how they're set up and what their staff and structure is.
Okay.
But Gardner graciously submits for it sounds like all the attorneys. But I also have other attorneys that are submitting theirs directly, and I also have entities where we have staff that is an available resource to an attorney, and then they're submitting those. So
Yeah.
I think this may also be a question for Shannon as to whether there is any sort of confidentiality issue.
Yeah.
I cannot answer that, but that's just what I.
Right. And right, exactly. If you represent, and I don't know, maybe you don't carry a caseload, Gardner, but if you represent child and then somebody else in your office represents parent, I don't know if the PD's offices can do that.
Right.
So your circumstances
doesn't
are
happen.
different. Okay,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We
so-
all would be representing, we would never have conflicts within our own
right,
firm
right.
between cases, and we all, cover each other's things and stuff like that. So it's like we would be, that's not a concern in our office. that
Okay,
We all have access to each other's reports and be able to assist and add things and subtract if we needed to. We don't do that. That's not what we do internally. The individual attorneys manage their own reports, but they're, I guess, accessible within the,
Okay.
within the office. But it's
Okay,
all
thanks for
internal.
okay, thanks for that clarification. You're a public defender office where you don't have the multiple parties on the same matter. Okay.
which is why we would have like probably why our consortium come in individually from each particular firm, rather
Right.
than through
That makes sense.
administrator.
Yeah, okay. But no, multiple emails, it doesn't matter. The system is built to handle. But there is no limit on capacity there is, to my understanding.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, well, it's 10 minutes to 1. If there are no other questions or concerns or anything, I think we could probably give back 10 minutes of your day, maybe. Don't think anybody else is probably gonna hop on at this point, but the recording will be available on our website shortly. And yeah, I think that's probably a wrap. Thank you for your questions, and Beth, we look forward to connecting with you offline. And thank you for joining.
Thank you. Have a great
All
day.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.